Alright, so we are in for a treat. This is not only a Knob Creek Single Barrel Select store pick, this is a 15-year. Or it's like 14 years and 11 and change months.
So 15 years.
Practically. This is the final one to get spirits pick for 2021. And so, especially since we just tried the 15 earlier tonight, let's see how this fares up.
It smells a little hot, but past that,
It also, the neck pour was a couple days
Recent.
ago.
brown sugar, tobacco, dark fruit, like prune. I definitely get a lot of prune in this.
Prune, almost like, yeah, I'd say prune.
Yeah, brown sugar, prune,
It's
leather.
very rich.
It is.
It's definitely more rich than sweet, like the 15 was. But the 15,
Yeah.
when we first opened it, wasn't very sweet either.
No, not at
It
all.
was an absolute oak bomb.
This is like dark fruits, leather, tobacco.
It's reminiscent to the 15-year, just the 15-year had more oak.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is pretty reminiscent to that first pour.
Well, let's see.
Ooh. A little bit of heat, understandable.
It definitely has some heat. It's peppery.
Brown sugar.
A lot of brown sugar, oak spice. Definitely has a lot of pipe tobacco. Ton of pipe tobacco. And like this has like a sharp sweetness. Like they really spiked it with brown sugar and like sugar in the raw. But there's not a whole lot of other sweet notes aside from maybe some vanilla, like on the tail end.
Right,
Like there's
but
not some
again, we'll have to see how it opens up because this is it's reminiscent of how the 15-year acted with different flavors.
Right. It's missing a little bit of the floral and it's missing a little bit of the coconut that was in the 15.
Right.
And it's also missing the peanut. There's actually no peanut in this.
Right. But the peanut was what made the 15 feel a little bit less Knob Creek and more just Jim Beam in general.
Right.
Because the peanut, again, as we discussed, the 15 is not characteristic of the 15.
No, especially not.
It's not characteristic of Knob Creek. This is a lot more reminiscent of the Knob Creek flavor profile.
Right.
I think.
I have to agree with that.
Because that 15, the regular 15, threw in the coconut and threw
Yeah.
in the peanut, which is not characteristic. And this is like, it tastes like I expected it to for a neck pour.
It has the characteristic brown sugar and oak spice that Knob Creek carries.
Yes.
Like that's why I love Knob Creek so much is mostly the brown sugar note. 'Cause
Which just has a ton of.
Yeah. It's
portion.
super sweet. Like in that
It's sweet considering the amount of the tobacco notes you're
Yeah.
getting from it, and the oak you're getting from it.
yeah, it's not sweet in the way you think of like a Weeder where it has a ton of vanilla and like desserty notes. This is
It's a
sweet.
decadent sweetness.
Yeah, this has like a decadent, thick brown sugar sweetness, not like a dessert sweetness.
Right.
But that being said, I would still have this for dessert. But it's the sweetness is more one-dimensional with a bunch of other things making it more complex, rather than complex
Rather than
sweet
the
notes.
right complex sweetness with not much else versus complex but with a very monochromatic
Sweet base.
Right.
Like this is a sweet base with not sweet complexity. A lot of Weeders are like sweet.
Like sweet across the board.
Yes, sweet base and sweet complexity.
And I look forward to seeing how a couple weeks of it being opened up changes that.
It's definitely going to reduce some of the spice. Like this is a little hot, but this is the type of
But
hot-
again, so were all the high age knobs when we first opened up. They were on the hotter side of things. So it's
Exactly.
tracking like those did.
Every single Jim Beam opens a little hot and then it mellows out after a month.
And I cannot wait to see how this turns out. Because this is good as this is.
Yeah, the only complaint I have is that it's a little hot, but
But,
I mean, I've had lower proof stuff that's hotter than this.
right. And that's, again, we have to just see how it opens up to see how much of that heat actually
Right.
sticks around. And my guess is, knowing Knob Creek, not much.
Knob Creek is not a very hot whiskey. It's not a very
It's
spicy
really
and it's not a very
The
hot whiskey.
heat comes from neck pours.
Yeah, 100%. Like the only thing that wasn't hot on the neck pour was the 12-year, but that also suffered from more of like an oak bomminess than
Oh,
it did
yeah.
a spiciness.
Like that one got affected a little bit differently, but it's definitely. I mean, the 15 was hot. It was an oak bomb.
Yeah.
It kind of had everything going against it, and it opened up to be delicious.
Yeah.
And I think that's the route we're about to see with this.
I completely
Knowing Knob Creek, I'd be surprised if it functions differently.
I completely agree.
And this is $60. This is a fucking steal as is.
Oh, for sure. I mean, what else at this
What
price
other
point is like
15
this?
year are you gonna find for under 100, let alone $60?
What are you gonna find something that tastes like this for $60?
Right.
Like,
And I mean, even look at Scotch. How often are you finding a 15-year Scotch for under 60? It's not very common, aside from blended Scotches.
yeah,
You can get Chivas 18 and Johnny Walker 18, but they're blended.
and they're not that great.
They're really not. They're okay, but like they don't stack up to any other 15.
No.
They stack up at the price point. They don't stack up to 15 years.
No, like most 15
Well, they're
years,
both 18s, but they don't stack up to 18 years.
and they're still less than like a single malt 18.
Right.
Like,
But like Macallan 15 is 100, and that's again a weaker 15 year in my opinion, and that one is still 130 something.
yeah, no, most 15 years outside of America are above
Glenlivet's
100.
around 100. Glenfiddich is over 100 or around 100 as well, I think.
Glenfiddich is probably the cheapest, but
And even that's way more than this is.
yeah, and I mean it's hard to compare bourbon to Scotch because they are very different. But like at the same time, you got to think about the age value, which
Right. 15 is definitely up there for bourbon, and to get one at $60.
yeah, I mean like 15 years is like very high for bourbon because there aren't many that go past that.
Like Dickel does that. I mean Eagle Rare has a 17, but
That's the thing though.
That's-
Once you go past 15, it's hard to get something because you have
right.
Yeah,
Elijah
Eagle
Craig
Rare-
18.
you have Elijah Craig 18, Eagle Rare 15, but all those are like
And-
mega
and-
expensive.
And the Pappies, which as we know are through the fucking roof, especially the 15.
Well, that's because the 15 is the best one.
Well, yeah.
Like,
But like the 20, like they still have the 2023, and they're still way more MSRP than this is.
right. Which I haven't
I mean,
tasted
not that
them, but
this isn't the most reliable thing because
it's a single
you have
barrel.
to, yeah. It's a single barrel. How often are the store picks actually close to 15
Well,
years?
here's the thing though. Elijah Craig 18 is a single barrel. Eagle Rare 17 is. I don't know if Eagle Rare 17 is a single barrel or a small batch. If I have to be totally honest.
I want to say it's a very small batch.
I think you're right, but I feel like we could both be proven wrong quickly
Right.
if you looked at it.
Elijah Craig is definitely a single barrel.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Which is interesting that the taste doesn't vary nearly that much.
No, they dialed it in very well with that.
Yes.
Surprisingly
They
enough.
definitely select very specific barrels.
Yeah.
But so yeah, while you know you're not going to get a store pick that's like this could be the best 15-year store pick ever. It could be the worst, and we would know because we just know it for what it is. But the problem is, the next one's not going to be what this is.
No.
Whether it's better, worse, the same, it's still not going to be this. So that's the one downside is when you get these high age store picks, is that you lose the reliability aspect of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still $60. Like this is worth it any day of the week.
There's just no consistency, which
Right.
honestly, that's kind of part of the fun. Like,
Right.
That's why.
Especially with something like this. Like if I see another 15-year of this, I'm buying it.
Oh
Without
yeah.
hesitation.
I would
If
still.
it's over 12-year, I think I'd buy it immediately.
I think I would still buy the 9-year. Like.
I
at
mean,
that
I would
point-
too. Like the non-store pick one, I'd still buy that.
Oh yeah, and even that one's super solid still.
Right, and that one's consistent too.
Surprisingly, yeah, it's very consistent. It's like
It's because they cut it slightly to a proof.
I think it's part that they cut it, and it's also part that they pick barrels from what is already a stock of a small batch. So if you're picking prime barrels from a huge amount of barrels, you can kind of dial it in a little bit better too.
Right. Like yeah, you only have slight variation.
Right.
There might be variation over years, but definitely not over batch to batch.
No. And like that's just a matter of they have so much stock available, they can make it pretty consistent for like the standard releases of it.
Try it as it's opened up. It's gotten sweeter. Like way sweeter. And it's only been sitting out for 5-10 minutes.
It's gotten sweeter. It's really reduced the spice, But the Kentucky Hug is still there.
Yes.
Which I like.
Well, that's going to take time for it to play out, I think.
But yeah,
I think Fine Wine and Spirits hit the nail on the head with this pick.
Well, when did they not?
Well, that's true. They do have very reliable picks, but like, of the picks I've had, this is one of the better ones in my opinion.
Oh,
of
sure.
anything. And that's being objective, not including personal taste. That's just like for what you expect for what you're getting. This and the Maker's picks, I think, are the two most reliable.
Oh, for sure. Their Maker's picks have been phenomenal so far.
And I mean, I love their Rebel and their Ezra too. But those are like, you're still talking value bottles at that point
Yeah.
too. Like $35 for a decent store pick. Doesn't matter how good you get, it's still a value bottle.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're not paying $60 not knowing what you're gonna get like you are with this to a degree. Or with something new like the Penelope or the Sagamore store pick was $55, but I've heard that's phenomenal too. If I see Fine Wine and Good Spirits on the label, I'm gonna trust it, I think. I have yet to be proven wrong.
No, they do a very good job.
Every pick I have, the Maker's picks, hell, one of my favorites is the one from this past year. Your favorite of all time is the one from the year before.
Right.
That Woodford just blew us away today. This was a gem. We're about to find out about that Russell's.
Yeah, hopefully this week.
That Penelope, I mean, I know you like the regular more than I like the store pick. I like the store pick more than I like
still
the regular.
think that pick that they made was a phenomenal bourbon.
Oh, 100%.
I just like the standard Penelope a little bit better.
Right, and again, like I said about the Ezra and the Rebel, like those were like, of those picks, I feel like we got in like that top percentile of those.
Oh,
picks.
for sure.
We had to have. It's hard to beat those. What other wine and spirits picks do we have?
There's a couple of Buffalo Trace. I mean,
The
I have
Buffalo
that Weller.
Traces, like they're solid. They're not to my taste, but they're solid.
There was that Weller that I have.
The
that
Weller
was
is
fantastic.
fantastic.
Um.
Oh, the High West.
Oh,
That
High
bourbon
West
is
was
delicious,
really
and
good.
I tried the rye, and that was phenomenal too. The midwinter barrels.
Yeah, that was really good. I can't.
I've
think
tried
of anything else
numerous
so far about that.
Ezras and from Fire Wine and Good Spirits. They were all solid.
Which I think Ezra is just a solid lineup. I mean, they source it from Heaven Hill. It works very well. Whatever they age it at,
Right.
they age it right.
But back to our point, like, this just keeps proving my point that I have yet to be even remotely disappointed by a Fine Wine and Good Spirits pick.
Right.
And I think of the wine and spirits picks I've had, this might be my favorite. I know that's hard to compare because you're comparing a Knob Creek to a Maker's, to an Ezra, to a Rebel, to a Penelope. Like, there's a lot of very different whiskeys to compare.
Right.
But in terms of quality of a pick, I think this takes the cake so far.
If I still had to pick a Fine Wine and Good Spirits store pick,
You're gonna pick that Maker's, aren't you?
yeah.
I
I
don't know
love
why,
that bottle so much, and I'm going to be so sad whenever I finally kill the last bottle of it. I'm down to 3. Like, that's where I'm at. I
Right.
have 3 left. One of them is open. But, yeah, I'm going to be sad when that's gone.
I have a couple bottles that I'm gonna milk them for so long because I don't want them gone. One of the Atlantic Liquors ones is gonna be that. Although the
Right.
Atlantic Liquors one, that's okay because they make the same picks every year.
Yeah, that was what you told me. You told me that
They
like,
have 4 picks. They do it every year, but it always, like, I would replace them. I'd buy second ones, especially of the 4.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would buy more of that. The 4 was like comparable to the wine and spirits ones.
Right.
The other ones were, comparable in quality, not necessarily comparable in my palate.
Well, here's the thing, though. They discontinued the Mocha stave.
I
So
know.
those
I
picks...
can't wait to try a pick that has the new one in
I'm excited, too. The only thing I have to say, though, is that your picks are all based on the old Mocha stave.
it, though. Stop doing this to me.
I'm just making you realize what is going to happen.
Stop doing this to me! All they're gonna do is it's the same pick and they're gonna swap it.
That's probably what's going to be what happens, but...
Because it's not going to be that dramatic of a difference, to my knowledge. Because
No.
the new one that's replacing the Mocha is very similar, they said, isn't it?
I don't know.
Because
I
I've
haven't heard a whole lot
heard that
about
it
it.
expands upon the Mocha.
If that's the case, I'll be happy.
That's what I've heard from. That's what I've heard from like.
As long as it
fresh
still has that
spices and stuff.
chocolate and coffee note, I'll be happy.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Because that was the whole reason I liked it so much.
I've heard it's gonna have more nuance to it, but it's still gonna have that decadent flavor to it.
That's all I care about then. Which I'm sure we're gonna find one of Good Spirits pick that emphasizes it, because
100%.
that was what they did with mine. That one was 4 staves of mocha, and then cuvee. I think it was
let
2
me
or
tell
3.
you the one that I'm getting from.
Anyways, Knob Creek.
Yes, no.
This is a wonderful pick.
100%. I'd say go buy one, but by the time you